The text came in just after 9 a.m. while I was reviewing vendor contracts at the front desk of the company I helped build. Dad, you're no longer my daughter. All future matters will go through my lawyer. That was it. No hello. No warning. Just 20 words to cut me out of both the family and the business, like I was a stain on his suit. I stared at the screen for a full minute. No follow-up. No explanation. Just silence. I sat back in the chair, hands steady, even though everything inside me was shifting. Behind me, I could hear my brother laughing in the hallway. He'd been gloating for days, acting like something was coming. I guess this was it. 3 weeks ago, I found some errors in the numbers. My father had taken out personal loans in the company's name, covering expenses that had nothing to do with business. When I confronted him, he told me to stay in my lane. When I pushed again, he told me I was too emotional to handle leadership. I didn't yell. I didn't argue. But I did start taking screenshots. And copies. And backups. I had helped build this company from the ground up. At 19, I was running payroll. By 26, I was managing our biggest accounts. I knew where everything lived, contracts, passwords, supplier chains. And they knew that. But somewhere along the way, they convinced themselves I wouldn't fight back. I looked back at the text. You're no longer my daughter. And just like that, every Sunday dinner, every 14-hour workday, every favor, loan, and sacrifice, they erased it all with a single sentence. So I replied with one. Me. As you wish. Then I minimized the screen, opened my encrypted folder, and started going to work. Bank logins. Payment gateways. Business registrations. Vendor contracts. Digital authorizations. I wasn't angry. I was methodical. I didn't scream. I documented. They thought they could cut me off like a branch. They forgot I was the root. My name is Naomi Brooks. And from wherever you're watching this video, stay with me. Because when my father disowned me by text, I answered like a businesswoman. And I didn't need revenge. I had receipts. Long before they erased me with a lawyer's text, I was already disappearing. One sacrifice at a time. At 19, I skipped college orientation because Dad needed someone to run the front office. Just for a few weeks, he said. It turned into 5 years. While my brother, Darren, came and went as he pleased, pitching big ideas and showing up late to meetings, I was the one tracking inventory, dealing with irate suppliers, fixing payroll glitches. They called it helping the family. But I was the only one who never got paid on time. I worked holidays while Darren flew to Miami for networking. I filed the tax documents. I stayed up until 3 a.m. drafting proposals my dad slapped his name on. And every time I asked for clarity on ownership, partnership, or equity, he'd say, "We're a family business. It's all yours one day." One day. It became his favorite way to pacify me. Just vague enough to keep me hoping. Just firm enough to keep me obedient. When I asked for a raise, he told me, "If you want a paycheck, go get a job like everybody else." But when Darren wanted new office furniture, approved. Instantly. I remember once my mom pulled me aside and said, "Your father expects more from you because he knows you're capable." It's a compliment. But compliments don't pay rent. And they don't build ownership. Still, I stayed. Because I believed in the business. Because I loved what we were building until I realized it was never ours. It was his. And Darren's. And I was just the scaffolding. When I brought up some financial discrepancies 2 months ago, tens of thousands misallocated, unexplained withdrawals, Dad said I was being paranoid. Don't go digging where you don't belong. That's when I knew. He didn't see me as a partner. He saw me as a liability with access. So I quietly began collecting every document I'd ever touched. Every tax file. Every vendor contract. Every shared folder. They didn't notice. Because they were too used to me being the one who cleaned up. Not the one who walked away. They thought I was lucky to be there. That I should be grateful for the opportunity to work 60 hours a week and still get called just the admin girl. But what they didn't understand was this. I didn't need their approval to do great work. And I didn't need their permission to protect it when the knives came out. So when that message came through, "You're no longer my daughter." All it really did was confirm what they'd been showing me for years. I just finally decided to believe them. The signs were everywhere. I just didn't want to believe them. It started small. A shared calendar invite I was accidentally left off. A vendor meeting rescheduled without telling me. A client I'd handled for 3 years suddenly being reassigned to Darren. At first, I brushed it off. Told myself I was overthinking. But then my email access changed. Certain folders were locked. Invoices I used to sign off on began going straight to Darren, even though he didn't understand half the terms. I asked Dad about it. He laughed and said, "We're just streamlining things. Less confusion." Confusion for who? I was the one who built that system. Then came the bank account notification. The monthly business account summary, which always came to my inbox, suddenly stopped. When I logged in manually, it said, "Access revoked by account holder." That's when I knew. They were phasing me out. Silently. Systematically. Like I was a bad hire they couldn't fire, so they tried to erase me piece by piece.
And Darren?
He couldn't stop smirking, walking around the office like he was next in line for the throne. He even changed the office nameplate outside Dad's office to Executive Founder and Son. It was subtle, but loud if you knew where to look. I overheard him one day in the break room telling a client on speaker, "Yeah, Naomi handles the paperwork, but real leadership? That comes from the top." He meant himself. The guy who couldn't read a balance sheet without color coding. The guy who once approved a supplier payment twice and cost us $12,000. The same week, I found a memo draft buried in the shared drive I wasn't supposed to access.
Subject:
New management structure, Q4 transition. In it, they outlined a new, streamlined executive path where I was listed under administrative consulting part-time basis.
Part-time.
In a company I'd run when they were on vacation. Still, I didn't say anything. Didn't confront. Just took screenshots. Saved files. Noted dates. Because you don't argue with people committed to misunderstanding you. You document. You prepare. And when the final blow came, the text from my father, the formal disowning, it didn't break me. It confirmed what they'd been working toward all along. They wanted me out. And they thought cutting off my bloodline would cut off my power. They forgot the foundation was mine. The systems were mine. The clients trusted me.
So I didn't shout.
I didn't threaten. I didn't try to fix it. I just opened my laptop and got ready to flip the switch. There's a unique calm that comes the moment you stop begging to be valued and start moving like someone who remembers what they built. After my father's text, I made coffee, sat at my desk, opened my encrypted hard drive. Everything was already organized. All the documents, all the passwords, all the contracts I'd quietly pulled into my private archive over the last year. Not because I was planning revenge, but because I knew one day I might need proof that I wasn't crazy, that I wasn't exaggerating, that I had value, even if they never said it out loud. The first thing I did was pull up the business registration. Name on file? Mine and my father's. That meant I still had signing power on every major account. I contacted the bank and requested a temporary freeze on disbursements, citing suspected unauthorized restructuring. Completely within my rights as a named co-owner. Then I logged into the payroll system, one I had designed, one they never learned to manage themselves. I removed auto-pay permissions from every account linked to them. Canceled scheduled transfers to Darren's fake consulting firm. I logged into Stripe, PayPal, QuickBooks, anywhere cash flowed, and paused everything. Every recurring supplier, every outbound invoice, every internal system tied to my credentials. Then I emailed our top 5 clients. Very professional, very calm. There will be a temporary pause in operations due to internal restructuring. I am still a listed co-owner and will personally ensure the continuity of services. You will not be billed until we clarify leadership roles. All 5 replied within the hour. They were with me. Next, I called my lawyer, someone I'd worked with privately for months. We finalized a letter of dissolution, one that formally requested either a buyout or dissolution of the partnership, immediately. I wanted out. With damages.
And receipts.
I wasn't walking away empty-handed. Not from something I helped build. I scheduled the letter to go out at 9 a.m. the next day. Then I turned off my phone, ordered dinner,
And watched a movie.
I didn't cry. I didn't shake. Because for the first time in years, I wasn't reacting. I was deciding. They thought they were locking me out, but they never realized I'd been holding the master key the entire time. Day one was silent. Not a single call. Not a single text. But I knew they'd seen it. My father's lawyer had received the formal notice by 9:03 a.m., proof of business freeze, demand for buyout, and a ledger of every transaction I was halting. The email's subject line was simple. Action initiated per request, Naomi Brooks. By noon, the business credit card was declined at a supplier showroom. By 4 p.m., I heard through a former coworker that 3 employees had approached HR asking why payroll hadn't cleared. Day 2, the panic started. The company's biggest vendor called me directly.
Confused.
Concerned. Naomi, they said it was a system glitch. But is it true? Did you really walk? I smiled. Not a glitch. Just a long overdue correction. My inbox was full. Darren sent 3 messages. Fix this. You're out. You don't get to do this. You're destroying everything. I didn't reply. Because I wasn't destroying anything. I was reclaiming what they tried to erase. At 5:42 p.m., I got a call. Unknown number. I let it ring. Then a knock on my door. Firm. Repeated. I looked through the peephole. Uncle Malcolm. My father's older brother. The same man who once told me at Christmas, "You're the only one with a brain in that office." I opened the door halfway. He looked exhausted. Tie crooked. "I need to talk to you," he said.
I didn't invite him in.
Just leaned on the frame. "They're bleeding," he said flatly. "You locked down everything. They can't access client payments, suppliers are pulling out, payroll's frozen, and the board is livid. They thought you'd never do it." I crossed my arms. They were right, until they pushed me far enough. He nodded. "Look, Naomi, you've made your point. Just come back. Fix it. We'll figure it out later." I laughed softly. "No, Uncle Malcolm. Now we figure it out." He rubbed his face. "Your dad, he's humiliated. Darren's useless. The business might fold." I shrugged. "Then it folds. Or he can buy me out. Full market value. Plus damages." He stared at me like he didn't recognize me. "You used to be so quiet," he said. "I still am," I replied. "But silence doesn't mean weak. It just means I was documenting everything." He sighed, then reached into his coat pocket and handed me a manila envelope. Inside, a proposed settlement. Buyout terms. With my lawyer's edits already marked in red. I looked back at him. "You knew this was coming." He didn't deny it. "I told them not to push you. They didn't listen." I nodded, tucked the envelope under my arm, and said, "They wanted to deal with me through lawyers. So now they can." And I closed the door. Not with anger, but with finality. By the end of the week, the cracks had become craters. The business, once running like a well-oiled machine, thanks to me, was buckling. The operations team couldn't access the vendor dashboard. The payroll clerk couldn't reactivate direct deposits. And clients? They weren't paying because they didn't know who was in charge anymore. Darren tried to salvage the mess with a fake PR blast calling it a minor restructuring. But anyone who had worked with us for more than 5 minutes knew better. The truth leaked fast. Whispers in the industry. A Reddit thread from a former employee. Even a vendor rep shared an anonymous post. Never sideline the person who actually runs your company. By the second week, our biggest supplier pulled their contract. By the third, 2 key staff members resigned, citing ethical concerns. The damage wasn't just financial anymore. It was reputational. And then the letter came. My father's lawyer formally requested a sit-down. He wanted to resolve things amicably. Funny, considering his last words to me were, "You're no longer my daughter." The irony? He still expected me to save the business he threw me out of. To come back. To fix what he broke. to be the bandage for a bleeding empire. But I didn't go.
My lawyer did.
With every document, every agreement, every receipt, they offered a lowball buyout. I rejected it. They blamed me for damages. We submitted proof that those damages were a result of decisions they made after locking me out. Every meeting, every memo, every financial shift. I had it all logged. They never saw the collapse coming, because they never thought I'd let them fall. But here's the thing. I wasn't letting them fall. They jumped. When they disowned me, when they erased me, when they dismissed my worth with a single text message, they thought cutting ties meant cutting my power. But I wasn't tied to them. I was tied to the work. And when they pushed me out, they removed the only thing holding it all together. The last straw was watching Darren post a video online, him pacing the empty office, blaming unforeseen technical issues for the downfall. He didn't mention my name once.
Didn't need to.
Everyone already knew. People reached out privately, former coworkers, competitors, even clients. We know what happened. You don't owe them anything. They were right. I owed them nothing. Not my time. Not my silence. And certainly not my rescue. They created the storm. And now they were drowning in it, without the one person who used to hold the umbrella. 2 months after I walked away, I signed a lease. Not for an apartment. For an office. A clean, sunlit corner space on the 4th floor of a modest building downtown. Big enough for 4 desks, 2 plants, and 1 bold new beginning. I didn't waste time trying to revive what they broke. I built something new. Something that couldn't be taken with a text. NB Advisory. My name. My terms. No partners who thought love was leverage.
At first, it was just me and a laptop.
But within weeks, I had 3 consulting clients, small, women-owned businesses navigating toxic family structures just like I had. They weren't looking for perfection. They were looking for boundaries. Protection.
Strategy.
I gave them all 3. I taught them how to separate ownership from guilt. How to draft contracts before the favors start. How to keep their name on everything they build. It was the most healing work I'd ever done. Because every time I showed another woman how to protect her power, I reclaimed a piece of mine. Then the media got wind. A business blog ran a feature. The daughter who froze her father's empire and started her own. I didn't give a full interview. Didn't name names. I didn't need to. The story wasn't about revenge. It was about resilience. And when they asked what I do now, I said, I help women leave the doors that won't open and build their own buildings instead. Lucas, my former team lead from the old business, reached out. He said, I always knew you were the backbone. Let me know if you need a CFO. I smiled. Because I didn't just need a team. I had one. Built from people who respected me. Who asked how I was, not what I could give. I set my own hours. Wrote my own policies. Paid myself first. And one Friday, I sat in that little office, staring at the nameplate on the door. Naomi Brooks, founder.
No one could take it from me.
No one could lock me out. No one could call me emotional, dramatic, or replaceable. Because I had drawn the line. And made damn sure they couldn't cross it again. It came at 2:17 a.m. A text.
For my father.
We may have overreacted. Can we talk? 12 words. 12 small words. After everything. The man who disowned me by text, who replaced me with my brother and tried to delete me from the very thing I helped build, now he wanted to talk. I stared at the message for a long time. Not because I was tempted to respond, but because it was surreal watching someone realize what happens when the daughter they never valued finally believes them. I didn't respond. I forwarded the message to my lawyer. He knew exactly what to do. By 10 a.m. the next morning, his office had sent a formal reply. All future matters can continue through counsel. Ms. Brooks does not engage in informal communication regarding any business or personal affairs related to previous partners.
Cold?
Maybe, but not colder than. You're no longer my daughter. 2 days later, a courier delivered a final set of settlement papers. Revised. Higher offer. No strings. I signed them with a glass of wine and Nora Jones playing low in the background. Not out of pettiness. Out of peace. It wasn't about money anymore. It was about the message. That I was never going to beg for a seat at a table I built. That I was done being their emergency contact and emotional sponge. That I had outgrown the version of myself they relied on to stay powerful. The week the final deal closed, I got a handwritten letter in the mail. No return address. Just my name. It was from my mother. I didn't know how to stop him. I should have spoken up. I miss you. There was no apology. Just regret. Which, to me, wasn't the same thing. I folded it once. Slipped it into a file I labeled Things That Tried to Break Me. Then I walked to the back of my office, where a corkboard hung above my desk. Pinned in the center was a photo of me, taken on day one of NB Advisory. Just me and a key, unlocking the office that had my name on the lease. And underneath that, in gold ink, was a quote I had written on a sticky note. The text said I was no longer their daughter. The receipts said otherwise. That was the last message that mattered. Because in the end, they came for control. They tried to sever blood like it wasn't bound to years of unpaid loyalty. But I didn't burn down their empire. I just turned off the switch and walked out holding the blueprint.